to be owned, manipulated, abused, killed. As part of nature, we are subjects, we have agency. And our life comes from the earth. We are alive because the earth is alive. And that's why this illusion of capitalist patriarchy, that the earth is dead, inert matter, and only gets value when capitalist patriarchs exploit from a mine, cut a forest, dam a river, genetically engineer our seeds. That is the illusion that has brought the world to destruction. The roots of the multiple crises, the ecological crisis, the food crisis, the health crisis, lie in a patriarchal and anthropocentric arrogance that humans are separate from nature and superior to other species who have no intrinsic worth, no value, no intelligence and creativity. They're not recognized as sentient beings and can be reduced to objects to be owned, manipulated, thrown away, pushed to extinction. We breathe because the trees give us breath. We have a beautiful meditation in India, you are, therefore I am, so hum. And every breath we take is a gratitude to the biosphere, to the living earth, who takes the amazing power of the sun and with the power of photosynthesis in the leaves, in the green leaves, takes the power of the sun and converts carbon dioxide into carbohydrates, the food we eat, the clothing we wear, and the oxygen that we breathe. There is no more sophisticated technology than the green leaf that has both regulated the atmosphere's behavior and given us a livable climate. But the green leaf that gives us food, the green leaf is the beginning of life. We're made of the same elements the earth is made of. We call them Panch Mahabhutas: earth, water, fire, air, space. Living, for me, is participation in the living processes of the earth. And that's why for us, economy is not extracting minerals from a mountain. That is extraction. That is making money. Pragmatistics, according to Aristotle. Oikonomia is derived from oikos, our home, Mother Earth. Its management is economy. The knowledge of how her systems work is ecology. And ecology is the mother of economy. Economy is a subset. But what we have today under capitalist patriarchy are rules of the economy that are at war with ecology, at war with women, at war with nature. We are the air and we are the breath. We are the water, we are the soil, we are food. The air, soil, biodiversity, water, food are the currencies of life that connect our life to the life of Mother Earth. Breath, water, food give us life. We breathe the oxygen the plants create. We drink the water the earth circulates, including through the mountains and the forests. My first involvement in the ecofeminist movement, in fact, my ideas of ecofeminism grew from this movement, was a movement called Chipko. Chipko means to hug. Now, in those days, the British colonial forestry had left this idea that forests are timber mines, and the entire forest management was for extraction, cutting down trees and replacing natural forests, oak, rhododendron, which conserve water, with pine that has absolutely no capacity to hold the water. So landslides grew, floods grew, women were walking further to fetch water from springs. And then this movement grew where women said, we will not let you cut these trees. We will hug them because they are our mothers. I remember a particular day, 1977, they came out with lanterns when the loggers had come to the forest. And the police was there the officials were there, and they said, "You stupid women, can't you see the sun is out? Why are you carrying lanterns?" And the women said, "The lanterns are not for the sun, they are for you, because you're blind. You think these forests are timber mines. We are telling you these forests are the sources of our water, of our soil, of our breath, and you will not cut them." And it took 11 years. But eventually the Chipko movement stopped logging in the high Himalaya. And the government was forced to recognize that the function of the forests is to conserve soil and water. What the women were saying was advanced scientific ecological facts. And what the timber industry was saying had led to disasters that had much more costs in terms of floods, in terms of washing off villages, than the little bit of revenue that the government got from timber mining. But the same extractivism was repeated. Those who think of the earth as dead matter think, "Oh, here's raw material for aluminium, mine the bauxite. Here's raw material for coal. Here's raw material for iron, mine the iron ore. Here's limestone in the mountains for making cement." And cement has value and limestone has no value. In 1982, I was invited by the government of India to look at mining and its impact in Doon Valley, which is where I come from. In those days, I was in Bangalore at the Indian Institute of Management. So of course, I immediately took up this offer, both because it meant working for my valley, for my home, and it meant coming home. I went, as is my way, my participatory research way. I first went to the women. And the government memorandum said that the hills are starting to look ugly and it'll have an impact on tourism. Please look at this impact. I said, "No, I'm not going to sign this till I talk to the women, because I want to know what really is the impact of mining." So I went to the women, and here are women who've never been to school. But they fetch the water. They're experts in water. They know where the springs are. And when I asked them, "What's the issue with mining?" they said, "Water." So I changed the memorandum. I said, "This is the whole ecological impact we will look at." We then found that actually for the miners, the limestone is the rock with limestone. For the women, limestone is the cavities in the limestone. It's the space within. Because as the rain comes, let me take a step back, and I know this to be true also for Turkey, because I've seen beautiful limestone landscapes in your country. Now, our mountains, the Mount Himalaya, are formed by the meeting of two plates. And as they met, they crashed. And as they crashed, they rose. The Himalaya is the rise of what was below the sea. It's the bottom of the sea. That's why it's so rich in limestone, because all the deposits of the dead fish, of the corals, that is what rose to the mountaintop at 3,000 feet. At 6,000 feet, actually. That's where the limestone is. But because it had crashed against each other, now it was not one solid rock. It was cracked. And as the drops of rain fell over centuries and millennia, those cracks widened. And as they widened, they formed cavities. There's some places in our valley where the cavities have 1,000 springs. You can walk through them. And this is where water is held. And the women knew it. So the three things we did, we mapped all the springs that had disappeared because of mining. We then showed that as mining takes place, water starts to disappear. But when the rain comes, because the forests are gone, and the rock that holds the water is gone, the water flashes through. and mining creates waste, large areas of the rivers were higher than the land around. So when the water races down, it carries villages with it, it carries roads with it. And the combination of disasters and water scarcity is what we assessed, measured. We said, if mining continues and this water disappears, what will it cost to build an artificial water system, pumping water from rivers far away to the top of the mountain to supply water? What would it take? It turned out to be about approximately 2,000 million rupees if we had to substitute nature's aquifer with a man-made structure. We showed the costs of the disasters. This case went up to the Supreme Court of India. And it's the first case where the Supreme Court ruled on the basis of an article in our Constitution called Article 21, the right to life, that every citizen has a right to live, and the state has a duty to protect the right to life. On that basis, the Chief Justice ruled that since mining was taking away the water, which is the right to life, and the right to life is enshrined in our Constitution, when commerce interferes with life, commerce must stop because life must carry on. And this was a phrase that Maria used to use so frequently about the war, about her mother, constantly taking care of the farm, taking care of the animals, and saying life must carry on. That is ecofeminism. Life in its flow must carry on. And my ideas over the years have taught me that we live in a democracy of life. We live in a democracy of the earth. I call it Earth democracy. That is what ecofeminism is the practice of, and it is the recognition of. The principles of Earth democracy for me are that Earth is living, and the living Earth is our mother. She's Terra Madre. She's Mother Earth. She's Gaia. She's Pachamama. She's Vasundhara, and has rights. We're all members of one Earth family, connected through life. We are part of the Earth and not separate from her. We are not her masters. We are interconnected through the living currencies of breath, water, nourishment. We have a duty to protect the Earth's living systems that provide us clean air, clean water, clean food. We are part of one humanity on one Earth. All human beings are equal. We are different, but diversity does not mean equality, and uniformity creates hierarchies. Our diversity enriches life and cannot be made the justification for inequality and injustice. Future generations have the right to enjoy the gifts of nature. Present generation have a duty to protect through earth care and pass the gifts of nature on to future generations. Another thing Maria always said, the colonization of nature, the colonization of women, the colonization of the future generations is the same colonization. Earth democracy is based on living economies, living democracies, living cultures, woven through the diversity in the web of life. Each life form supports and sustains all others in the mutuality, cooperation, and harmony. All living beings are sentient beings and have rights. All beings are creative and intelligent. And the recognition now that all life is essentially what indigenous cultures had, what women's cultures had. All cultures were cultures of the divine feminine, celebrating life on earth, embodied in the divine feminine. Even in Europe, the ancient temples were all goddess temples. It's only as patriarchy rose, and with it militarization rose, that we started to see new hierarchies being created. I have called the illusion of separation of humans from nature and superiority of the other species as ecological apartheid. Capitalist patriarchy creates ecological apartheid. Apartheid is a word in the Afrikaans language given to separation when South Africa was colonized, taken from the native people, the Black people, and colonized by the Europeans. The false assumptions of eco-apartheid are the transformation of Terra Madre, Mother Earth, who's living and has rights, into Terra Nullius, the empty earth. The assumptions that nature is dead, inert matter, property to be owned, raw material to be extracted for profits. The denial that the earth is living and has rights is at the root cause of the ecological destruction. Because when the earth is living, you respect the earth. You take permission from her. You don't cross the limits. When you declare the earth is dead and passive, just raw material for your use, then you will extract the last drop of water from a river, the last mineral from a mountain, last tree from a forest, the last fertility from the soil. Eco-apartheid, the assumption that humans are separate from nature, her conquerors, her masters, her owners, and the denial of the fact that we are part of the earth, not separate from her. Apartheid as separateness is also sowing the seeds of superiority. Human apartheid is related to ecological apartheid, domination and discrimination on the basis of race, gender, religion, work, based on the false assumption that colonizing man is superior to other cultures and most human beings, including the indigenous, the non-white, the colored, women, farmers, peasants, and workers. This false assumption of superiority is also used to enclose the commons that are cared for and shared by all members of the community. Enclosures allow the extraction and appropriation of resources that sustain life. And this goes hand in hand with anthropocentrism, the assumption that humans are superior to other species, which are reduced to objects to be owned, manipulated, and exploited for profits and control, a denial that we are members of one earth family, and all living beings are sentient beings with integrity and rights. If nature is dead and not living, nature and the earth have no rights. There are no ecological limits, no limits to extraction. This is the root of the violence against the earth. How did violence against the earth and war against the earth get normalized? It is part of the colonial project. Because what was colonization? But grabbing the resources of colonized countries and claiming that the theft was the creation. Nature does not create. Indigenous people do not create. Women don't create. And the architecture for this, the East India Company was created in 1600. This was the British colonialism. Before that, there'd been a century of Spanish colonialism, largely colonizing the Americas. But Africa, Asia were colonized, and North America were colonized by the British East India Company. Within no time, the intellectual work to justify and legalize colonialism and make it the norm of our relationship with the earth was established. Now, I'll just give you two dates. In 1600, the East India Company is created. 1603, Bacon, who's called the father of modern science, writes a book called The Masculine Birth of Time, Masculus Partus Temporum. And in The Masculine Birth of Time, he says, I am come to you in very truth, leading to you nature with all her children, to bind her to your services and make her your slave. Who was Bacon? Was he a scientist? No. He was the Chancellor of England, and as a Chancellor playing a very big role in the creation of colonialism, but also playing a big role in the witch hunts, in the Inquisition, torturing peasants who were fighting against the enclosures of the commons, torturing women who had been defined as witches. And so he took torture as a relationship in society into our relationship with the earth. And the tragedy is that this converting nature into your slave was named the scientific method. And all scientific ways of really knowing how nature works, knowing our relationship with the living earth, they were called anti-science, they were called superstition. They even were called heresy. And while Bacon was laying the foundation of a twisted hierarchy, pathological epistemology, which eroded the ontology of a living, intelligent earth and the living autopoietic organisms, mechanistic reductionism was elevated as a form of science, when it is not science because it doesn't let you know how nature works. It tells you how to exploit nature, but exploitation is not knowledge of a system in autonomy that works as a living system. Bacon became the father of modern science. He defined the shift from seeing nature as a nurturing mother and source of life to an object of economic exploitation, domination, and mastery. And while knowledge and epistemology was going the path of epistemicide, killing women's knowledge, killing the knowledge of the earth, killing the intelligence of nature, on the other hand, we had Mr. Locke redefining our relationship with the earth in terms of property and redefining economy. So, two elements of Locke's teaching. He wrote books on governance. He says, property is made by the mixing of nature with labor, but not the labor of women, the peasant, the horse. It's the mixing of spiritual labor of capital that creates property. And so the commons were enclosed. And the rich men started to grab land, including colonially. In 1783, Lord Cornwallis wrote one directive from the East India Company that all the land and soil of India belonged to Britain. And what did they do? In India, where we did not own the land, we had no private property. We had use rights to the land. We were custodians of the land. We cared for the land. Land became property of England. The peasants who had cared for the land for 10,000 years suddenly had to pay rents. $45 trillion was paid to England. And where did it come from? From the work of the peasants. Half of what they produced in a good year had to be paid in cash. So they had grown the food, but they couldn't eat it because most of it was being sold to pay the rents to the British. 60 million Indians were killed. Just as 90% of the indigenous people of Americas were killed through the land grab. And how many Africans captured as slaves were killed. So slavery, torture, privatization is the logic of capitalist patriarchy. War, violence, militarization, and the illusion of creation. Another element of Locke's shift of our worldview is that if Bacon wrote his book in 1603, in 1610, Locke redefined currency from being what moves through life, the currency of life, of our breath, of our food, of our water, of our energy, of our love, of our compassion, of our solidarity, of our symbiosis. And he defined currency as money, the money that was being extracted from places like India. And invest, which meant to make something beautiful before that. He redefined it as making money out of money. So you must look at the 17th century to see how capitalist patriarchies are. Intellectual architecture was put in place. And it is still the books that are taught in every university for science, for politics, for economics. Adam Smith wrote the book, The Wealth of Nations. I read it. It's really a description of colonialism. And he is describing it as economy. Colonialism was not an economy, it was a war. And a basic element in his Wealth of Nations is we are born with competition in the womb of our mother. No, we are alive because our mothers cared for us. Our mothers had compassion for us. Our mothers gave us the gifts of limitless, unconditional love. Cooperation is the principle of nature and women's society. Competition is the principle of capitalist patriarchy. Cooperation, as I have seen and learned through my work in Vandana, actually creates a more productive universe. So let me now wrap up with what I have learned over these many years of working in peace with the earth, working as part of the earth, and cultivating with hope. Over the years, for me, ecofeminism has become the basic principle of the living economies that we have to create. Living economies that recognize that the earth is for all, not a few billionaires. Today's billionaires are the new colonizers. The old colonizers used religion, and your amazing civilization was at the heart of the so-called clash of civilizations. How far Constantinople used to rule. The Crusades were really an economic warfare. At that time, religion was used to justify the wars. Today, the religion has become the global market and the technology in the hands of those who want to colonize the world through their tools and their technologies. Nature has a technology, women have our technologies, plants have their technology. Technology is not a billionaire product. Plants communicate. Information technology is so far behind the web of life in the soil. As scientists are showing, the soil web, the World Wide Web in the soil of living organisms, has much more neurological activity taking place than the web of the digital universe. So the earth is for all, and we are one earth family. Patriarchy has no place in this earth family. In Earth's family, in Gaia's family, there is no privileged species. There is no privileged race. There is no privileged gender. There is no privileged religion. We are just diverse expressions. Diversity does not make inequality. I want to just share a poem a wonderful person wrote. He became an ecofeminist after reading my book, Staying Alive, and started to teach it in Harvard. And that alone prevented him from becoming a tenured professor at Harvard. But this is a poem he wrote. Nature has a plan. A big part of it is woman. Other species, not a few, have a right to be there too. If that is mostly understood, most everything is good. And when we think we are it and nature but a tool, she sends us wailing back to school to relearn the goodly rule. Another big principle that I have learned from the earth is that the earth is creative. The earth is intelligent. We're now realizing that the smallest bee, the smallest microbe, the smallest plant, an insect, the bee, they are all intelligent. They all have minds. They all know what they're doing. They're sentient and conscious. And our work, that is called non-work, non-knowledge. Our work is to work with this collective intelligence of all beings on the earth, to produce with them. It's always said women's work is not work. That is a bias of capitalist patriarchy, because capitalist patriarchy only measures the labor that can be exploited by capital. It does not measure the free, autonomous work that produces and regenerates life. The work of women, the work of the peasant, the work of the tribal people, the work of all the beings that give us everything we need. Co-production is the living economy, and we as women are the biggest producers. Life is a gift economy of care, and gift economies actually produce more. Taking, extraction, creates scarcity. Giving, caring, is the true economy of abundance. Our bodies, the earth's body was made to look inert. Our bodies were made objects of exploitation. Mr. Descartes said, I am a thinking thing without a body. The body was not just desacralized, was made to disappear. But our bodies are creative and generative. The earth and the gift of creative work for regeneration is what makes this our time, with our bodies and our minds, because our minds and bodies are not separate. From the creative minds, loving hearts, and creative hands, we are regenerating and creating a world beyond destruction. Economies of the gift, through symbiosis, create abundance. I hope some of you who've read my books will also come to India. Every year in March, I do a course on ecofeminism. You can go to the website of Navdanya Earth University, or you can write to earthuniversity@navdanya.net. And I hope I will see some of you there, because working with humility with the earth has shown us that we actually produce 3 times more food. 200%, 100% nutritions. We've shifted from measuring just the weight of a commodity to the nourishment in our food. And it's our love for the soil, for the seed, for the plants that creates more material goods. Diversity and decentralization are the organizing principles of life, not centralization and monocultures. The monoculture of the mind is a disease that capitalist patriarchy has forced on us. And finally, we are made to look only at what we can buy. We have been reduced to consumers from being Earth citizens. I have realized that happiness and well-being are the true purpose of our lives. And when we care for others, when we care for the earth, our happiness grows, our well-being grows. And to you, I give you greetings of love and happiness, so that together, strengthening ecofeminism, strengthening our care for the earth, we can counter all the violence of capitalist patriarchy. Never give up hope. I remember once I was in Istanbul, and I was invited to the ancient gardens, which they were trying to shut down for a concrete park. And I'm so happy that my little visit protected those gardens. We must plant gardens of love and gardens of hope everywhere. Thank you.
Çok teşekkür ederiz Vandana sunumun için ve bize bu kadar ilham verici bir konuşma yaptığın için çok teşekkür ederiz. Ne yazık ki ses sistemimizden dolayı böyle biraz doğrudan soru alamıyoruz. Bir chat'e soru gelmiş. Bunu İngilizce geldiği için direkt İngilizce okuyacağım. Şimdi ben de İngilizce kanala geçiyorum. Dear Vandana, thank you for your leading contribution to fight against colonization, globalization with emphasis of ecofeminism. I understand that the earth is defined with her relation to women in ancient cultures. However, gender is also in crisis today. Duality is bringing more war. Just wondering how ecofeminism should evolve in her language.
Well, ecofeminism evolves the language of peace, peace with the earth. And I will ask my colleagues to send you on the 5th of March, no, 5th of June. I created a movement called Diverse Women for Diversity, and Maria Mies was a big part of it. We had a gathering in India, and we prepared an ecofeminist manifesto of making peace with the earth. We will share it with you on the 5th, and you can translate it into your language and share it amongst yourselves. Just as I think of the fact that, the corporations wanted to own the last seed through genetic engineering and patenting, and we started to save seeds. And there was a very beautiful, very powerful poem from Palestine, which said, you can destroy my villages, you can bomb our habitat. You can kill every tree till no insect, no bird can find a place to hide. Do that more, I do not despair ever, because I save one seed that I will plant and grow again. So as long as we have one seed of peace in our hearts, that's why these islands of ecofeminism are the seed banks beyond war.
Yeah, very meaningful. Thank you very much. There's another question. Again, because it came in English, I give voice to this English question. Thank you, Vandana. Beautiful tribute and beautiful speech. I have two questions. You have shown us how the personal, political, and the earth are connected. How can we cultivate and share with the others practices of learning with the earth? How can we realize that in our lives? This is one question. And the other one is, some of us struggle with bridging differences as women and LGBTQI+, especially as activists and local women. How would you suggest us learn from these challenges and turn them into caring relationships? Let me ask the other, if it is okay, shall I ask the other question and you can...
No, I won't remember. Let me answer this first.
Okay, thank you.
I've already forgotten the first. You've got to remind me the first question.
Sorry again. First question is, you have shown us how the personal, political, and the earth are connected. How can we cultivate and share with the others the practices of learning with the earth? How can we realize that in our lives?
Yeah, so, our body was made to appear inert and as an object, just a sexual object to be exploited. But when I talk of the currencies of life, when you breathe, you're connecting to the earth. So much of yoga is about pranayam, the deep breathing. That's how you connect. Every time you eat, you're connecting to the earth. And if you start, even in a small patch, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a big farm. It could be 3 plants on your windowsill, a little garden. Put your hands in the soil. You've connected to the earth. Put a seed in the soil. It gives you food. When you eat that food with gratitude, you've connected to the earth. When you eat with consciousness, you remember that the earth, the soil, the plants, and your gut microbiome is one connection. 100 trillion microbes in our gut. They need diversity of diet. When you feed them industrial food, they get sick and they make you sick. So every time you eat with consciousness. Grow your food or know your farmers. Know the farmers who are growing food. And then water. Every time you drink water, just be conscious of where is it coming from. And to the extent possible, just like the women of Chipko protected their water by protecting the forests, I worked to stop the mining to protect our water. I have worked with movements against dams to protect the rivers. Organic farming is a way to protect the waters. You know, the more organic matter there is in the soil, the more water there is in the soil. And you don't have desertification. So consciousness of a conscious planet, consciousness of our relationships and the currencies that relate us, and action to intensify those relationships.
Yeah,
And the
you're
second
right.
question I remember, the second question really is about diversity. We have to shift from monocultures of the mind to diversity. And what is diversity but giving space to diversity of ecological life, of biodiversity, and giving space to diversity of cultural life. That is the freedom, that I don't close the space of the other. I leave that space for that species to grow. I leave the space for diverse cultures to grow.
Yeah, I understand you. Like, if you leave the space for everyone and everything, then the life will be more greener and diverse. Yeah, that's right. Thank you very much. And we have another question, but that is in Turkish, so I'm turning to Turkish channel. Gerçek anlamda bütüncül bir iyileşmeye inanıyor musunuz? 1600'den beri giderek vahşileşen bir süreç bizim yaşam süreçlerimiz içinde iyileşebilir mi? Diğer yandan da şirketleri böyle vahşileştiren sebep sizce nedir? Örneğin bir şirket sahibi neden bu kadar her şeye sahip olmak istiyor? Bu kolay veya keyifli bir şey değil. Aslında şimdi cümle pardon yanlış oldu. Bu kolay veya keyifli bir şey değil. Neden yüzlerce yıldır bu devam ediyor ve nasıl iyileşebilir?
Yeah. I think those who get captured by the logic of capitalist patriarchy don't see any other way. And the logic of capitalist patriarchy is the logic of the cancer cell. Every healthy cell grows, regulates, disappears, is replaced. We are replaced constantly. Every cell in our body is getting replaced. And no healthy cell multiplies beyond limit. Only the cancer cell grows without limit. And so the logic of capitalist patriarchy is cancer, not knowing when to stop growing. And that's because it has moved beyond the processes of life, which constantly remind you of the limits, to the processes of fictions. The corporation is a fiction, pretending to be a person. Finance is a fiction, which is ruling the world. I think my book, Oneness versus 1%, in which I found that actually all the corporations are owned by the asset management funds, the BlackRocks and the Vanguards, who own each other. And then they own Coca-Cola, they own Monsanto, they own Bayer, they own everyone. They are not regulated by any government. They regulate the governments. So Oneness versus 1%, I think, is also available in Turkish. Do read it. It shows you the sickness of the system. And this system, because it predates on life and it creates waste. The pollution in the atmosphere is climate change. The pollution in our food is the toxics that give us cancer. But it is now wanting to use the tools of redundancy, the tools of artificial intelligence and robotics, to make 99% people redundant. This is what the tech billionaires talk about on a regular basis. We don't need 99% people. Now, if we work with the Earth's living body, with our living bodies, every body is needed. Every human being is needed to care for the Earth. But if we've shifted our world into a digital world and a financial world, we start to predate and convert life into cash and multiply that cash mysteriously to algorithms. There is a new attempt being taken, and you all should be alert to it. When the Glasgow Summit on Climate Change took place, just before that, the Rockefeller Foundation and the New York Stock Exchange invented a new nature asset companies who can own nature directly. Right now, they own resources of the earth, create private property in land and more. Now they want to own nature as a financial asset, which can be traded on Wall Street. $4,000 trillion is the profits they're looking at. But to do that, they'll have to take our rivers away from us. They'll have to take our forests away from us. They will have to take our land away from us. So we are entering the ultimate conflict of destruction against life, of capitalist patriarchy against the living democracy of the earth. And therefore, we have to be very alert. We have to be very creative. We have to be very resilient. And we have to have a lot of solidarity. And we must constantly look at what's going on in order to create our living strategies of peace, of love, of compassion, of oneness.
Thank you very much. Teşekkürler. Şimdi yanımda Eray Özgüner var arkadaşımız. O size kendisi doğrudan sormak istedi. Bu arada bir arkadaşımız salonu da çekiyor. Onun da görüntüsünü, salon görüntüsünü galeri view yaparsanız görebilirsiniz. Kendisine devrediyorum. Buyurun. Olmadı mı? Nasıl oldu? Tamam.
Sesim geliyor mu? Vandana merhaba.
Yes.
Sevgilerimi gönderiyorum.
Hello.
Duygularımıza o kadar tercüman oldunuz ki çok heyecanlandım. Yürekten, kalpten teşekkürler. Bize kattıklarınız için, öğrendiklerim için. Ben bir aktivist annenin oğlu, aktivist çocuğunu kaybetmiş bir anneyim. Kendi düşündükleri noktasında yaşadı. Onun dışına çıkmadan da 32 yaşında kaybettim. Ben mülksüzleşme, bu dünyayı ormanlarıyla, suyuyla sahibi olmadığımız bir yer olarak görüp de bu yaşa gelen ve bu doğrultuda çocuklar yetiştirme noktasında hep ilerledim. Benim size şöyle bir sorum var. Acaba bütün dünya kadınları, bütün ülkelerden kadınlar bir ortak, ben bilmiyorum, belki siz bana bir cevap verebilirsiniz. Bütün dünya ülkeleri kadınları ekofeminist, hayvan hakları, LGBT hakları, zaten bütün hakları biz bütün olarak görüyoruz. Böyle bir bağlantı, böyle bir ağ noktasında böyle bir şey var mı? Yoksa bunu yapabilirsek çok güzel olur yani bu noktadan belki bir küresel eylem noktasında bütün dünyanın kadınları ve ortak bir mücadele alanı yakalayabilir miyiz? Bütün ülkelerde böyle aynı günde bir şey yapabilir miyiz? Çok teşekkürler.
Yeah, I mentioned the Diverse Women for Diversity. Of course, it began with protecting biodiversity and seeds from patenting and GMOs and the corporations. But as I said, I will ask my colleagues to send you the manifesto on the 5th, and they will also evolve a way to stay in touch. And you can also send to them, to Manlio, ideas for action so that we can then consolidate on a common day of action and just build our strength together. Thank you for the suggestion. And we should be wrapping up now.
Tekrar bir el sallayalım mı? Alkışlayalım mı?
Okay, thank you very much, Vandana. You can see that everybody loves you very much here, and
I
we
love
are
you too. I
we,
send
we
you
are
love.
we appreciate your time and your thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye to all. Bye-bye. And all